My dream home, filled with my own money, was the culmination of my hard work. It was filled with my blood, sweat, and tears. I never imagined it would be taken away by my in-laws, but I won't let that happen. I will do whatever it takes to stop them, even if it means putting my whole life on the line. My name is Juniper, and I got married at the age of 33. I never really thought about getting married. I saw others around me getting hitched and started dating someone at the time. I figured it would be better to have someone by my side. Looking back, it wasn't a wise way of thinking. My husband's name is Ambrose. We met at a group date when I was 30. I was working for a foreign company, while Ambrose was just a regular employee at a supermarket. Naturally, there was a huge salary difference between us, and Ambrose's job was also very demanding. But we had no children, and I had a decent income, so we never struggled to make ends meet. We understood and respected each other's work and enjoyed our life together. Well, except for one thing. The biggest stress for me was dealing with the bullying from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law in my husband's family home. Both our houses were close by, so from the beginning of my marriage I was often invited to my mother-in-law's house when I had days off. I could have refused, but as a newlywed, it was difficult to turn them down. As soon as my husband and I arrived at my in-law's house, my mother-in-law gave me orders. "Oh, you're finally here. Can you make some tea for us? And when you're done, please clean the second floor." While I was making the tea as instructed, my sister-in-law arrived and treated me like a housekeeper. "I'll have some black tea. Can you buy some sweets at the convenience store?" I thought, why do I have to do this? They should do it themselves. At the very least, they had to choose the same drinks. I was about to say that, but in the end, I followed what I was told and headed to the convenience store. After all, they are my husband's family, and I didn't want to cause any trouble. Besides, going to my in-laws' house was only once or twice a month. As long as I obeyed their words at the time, there wouldn't be any harm. For the time being, I acted as I was told, but eventually I reached my limit. One day when I was summoned by my mother-in-law to go to their house, she spoke to me with a serious expression. "Juniper, can I talk to you for a moment?" At the time, a warning sound rang in my head. "There's no way it's good news." I replied as a formality, "What's the matter?" As expected, my bad feeling was right on target. "Listen, Juniper, our living expenses are a bit tight this month. I need to borrow about $1,000. Can you help me out?" My mother-in-law peered into my face as if it was a matter of course that I should lend her money. $1,000? No way, I said in my mind and flatly refused. "Mother-in-law, I'm sorry, but I can't lend you $1,000. I already gave you $500 last month, remember?" I uttered. Yes, last month I loaned my mother-in-law $500, and it seemed she got a taste for it. But the $500 was for my husband's hospital bill, wasn't it? My mother-in-law made excuses as if she was indignant. "This month is for living expenses. We are really struggling. Please help us." My mother-in-law begged me with a sweet voice. Even with the $500 from last month, I never found out what my father-in-law's diagnosis was. Despite being for his hospital bill, it seemed like my mother-in-law and sister-in-law just wanted money to use as they pleased. I had a hunch that was the case. I couldn't give my mother-in-law any more money. Besides, our family wasn't that well off either. We relied mostly on my salary since my husband's salary wasn't enough to live on. "Come on, can't you just help out a bit since my mom is struggling? Remember how excited you were when you got your summer award?" Ambrose said. My mother-in-law's eyes lit up at the mention of the word bonus, and she turned to us. "Juniper, did you get a bonus, and yet you refused to help me?" For some reason, I was being blamed. "Yeah, I did get a bonus, but I saved it all for our dream of owning our own home." Yes, I had a dream of one day building my own home filled with all my personal touches. It had been my dream since I was a child. That's why I never splurged on luxuries and saved every penny of our bonuses. Just because I got a bonus didn't mean I had a reason to help my mother-in-law. She continued to complain, but I kept refusing, and finally, we left their house. On the way back in the car, I couldn't help but express my dissatisfaction to my husband. "Hey, why am I the one who has to take all this flack? If your mom doesn't have enough money, why doesn't she ask you for help?" My husband felt that off with a disgruntled sigh. "You make more than me, don't you? Plus, you get bonuses, so why can't you help out a little? He sounded like I was the bad guy. But your mother said I'm living a lie? She thinks you make more money than I do, even though you don't. Isn't it weird for her to demand money from me? I resented. Who cares? Instead of whining about it, why don't you just do it? He asked. My husband's impossible attitude made me really angry. I wanted to yell at him, but I held my tongue. Anyway, I'm not going to help anymore. Last month I was lied to about your father's medical expenses. If you're worried, then you figure it out from now on. I finished. My husband clicked his tongue and fell silent. When it came to money issues, he was never able to stand up for himself due to his low-paying job. He didn't say anything more on the matter. Prior to this, my mother-in-law would often approach me with requests for money, or with seemingly reasonable excuses such as, "This month is really tough. Could you transfer $500? Or, "My husband might need to be hospitalized. Please transfer $1,000. I didn't want to pay for anything, but every time I refused, my husband called me stingy and narrow-minded. I ignored all this, and didn't want to spend any more of my savings on my mother-in-law's demands. Besides, I was close to achieving my goal of saving enough money for a down payment on my dream house. After a few months, my dream of building my own house finally came true. Since it was my decision, I have to pay for everything, including home ownership. Until I started working at my current company, I had a hard time, but all my efforts paid off. At this point, I felt deeply satisfied. Before I started construction, my husband had warned me, "I'm not paying for this, you know that." "That's okay, Ambrose," I replied calmly. "It's my dream, and I've saved up for it. You don't have to worry about the expense." However, my low-income husband still couldn't afford to help me. In addition, his supermarket had been struggling for the past few months, and as a result, his paycheck was reduced. Due to my husband's low income, he started refusing to even provide for our daily expenses. On the other hand, our home was almost completed after the construction company finished its work. As I thought about what kind of furniture to put in and how to arrange everything, I found myself enjoying the work despite it usually being a source of stress. Although I was often invited to my in-laws' home, I would decline by saying I had a meeting with the construction company, and my husband started going there alone more often. Finally, my long-awaited dream home was completed. I did it! I finally got my dream home filled with everything I've ever wanted, I thought to myself. We were scheduled to move in over the weekend. That was when my husband suddenly said, "Why don't we order some high-end sushi this weekend?" "High-end sushi? Aren't we moving this weekend?" I asked. He just laughed. "Incredibly, my mother is coming to our new place. What are we supposed to do? Not offer her hospitality?" he said. "Your mother? Why? I hadn't heard anything about your mother visiting this weekend, and we certainly don't have time to entertain guests during a move," I firmly stated. "It's not just for us. It's also a housewarming gift for my mom. We'll all be living together, so we should celebrate properly on the first day." As if nothing had happened, he said, "The new house is for you, Mom? We'll be her roommates?" I was in disbelief. What is this guy even talking about? I mentally said, "I'm supposed to live with the mother-in-law in the house I paid for." In that moment, something inside me snapped. I raised my voice and replied, "Don't be ridiculous. Who gave you the right to decide this is our home? I built it with all my money. I'll never allow cohabitation." I resented. My husband responded with defiance. I'm the eldest son, you know. It's only natural for family members to live together. You haven't contributed a single dollar, and yet you think it's your house just because you are the man of the house? I won't stand for it," I shouted, and he stood up straight. "Enough. Calm down. Remember, you are the one who married into this family. Think carefully before you speak," he said, and then left the house. "Calm down? That's my line," I shouted after him as he headed for the door. Honestly, the fact that he left and that we had a fight were both irrelevant to me. There was no way I would let those people occupy the house I worked so hard to build. The next day, my husband returned home and said with a grin, "Have you reflected on your behavior?" "What do I have to reflect on?" I replied. Can you really say that? If you refuse to live together, I will divorce you right away," he stated. Does he think this is a trap? I thought. He looked down on me, feeling triumphant. "Think carefully about the position you're in," he said, and left the house again. "Isn't this actually a lucky situation?" Moving day arrived and we finished moving all our belongings and started unpacking. Then the intercom buzzed. "Hey, it's me. Open up already." My husband was standing at the entrance. Through the monitor, I could see my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and even my father-in-law gathered there. "May I ask who's there?" I asked stiffly, which seemed to anger my husband. I said, "It's me. Hurry up and open the door. The moving company's truck will be here soon." "The moving company? But we're done moving all our belongings. Are you sure you've got the right place?" I asked. "Stop messing around." He started banging on the doors and windows. "If you don't open up, I'm going to break this window." Not wanting to disturb the neighbors any further, I called the police right away. "Hello, my ex-husband and his family are causing a scene outside my home. Please come quickly," I uttered. The police responded immediately, and a patrol car arrived within 5 minutes. My ex-husband and his family were arrested on the spot for breaking the window of my new home. As they were being taken away, my ex-husband shouted, "I'm the owner of this house. We just had a little argument with my wife." "Actually, the house is in my name and you are just my ex-husband, right?" I confronted him with reality. "Ex-husband? What are you talking about? We are not divorced, are we?" he wondered. "What are you saying?" I was puzzled. "You want a divorce, don't you? Let's do it." He must have never thought I really wanted a divorce. My ex-husband was in shock and hung his head. In the end, he and his family were taken into custody for their disorderly conduct and property damage, and I made sure to claim the cost of the broken window. It's funny, they seemed to think they could naturally move into my new home, having already canceled the lease on the apartment they lived in until immediately. Apparently, they were allowed to go home soon after being questioned by the police, but without any destination to go, they were left behind with the luggage they planned to bring to the new home. My ex-husband begged, "Please, we have nowhere else to go. I won't say any more bad things. Just for now, let us stay here." But as someone who had already divorced him, he was a stranger to me, and I declined his request politely. My ex-mother-in-law and ex-sister-in-law also hurled insults at me, saying things like, "What kind of person leaves their family in trouble?" But to me, they were no longer family. I cut off all contact with my ex-husband and his family and severed all ties. Currently, it seems that they are living a cramped life in a new apartment that they have just rented. They used to live on the money from my ex-father-in-law's early retirement pension, my ex-sister-in-law's part-time job, and the money I had provided. Even with my ex-husband's low salary, they could barely make ends meet. It's just like karma to me. Meanwhile, I decided to invite my parents to live with me in my spacious new home, and the three of us would live together. "Oh, how lovely. Are you sure about this? You are even living with Mom and Dad?" my friend asked. "It's fine. It's too spacious for me to live alone anyway. It's my way of repaying my parents for the trouble I caused them during my divorce," I said. Some people were surprised when they found out that I got divorced soon after building this house, thinking what a waste of a new home. But for me, being able to spend time with both of my parents in this house is the greatest happiness of all. If I had endured living with my ex-husband's family, I would have surely been treated like a servant every day, and my life would have been miserable. Compared to that, divorce is nothing. I'm glad I didn't sacrifice my own life for those people. From now on, I want to cherish each day for myself and for my parents.